So you want to learn Dead by Daylight. In this guide I will be going over how to play both Survivor and Killer, as well as tips for gameplay and character progression. Basically everything you need to know to get started. If you're looking for a specific topic, here are the timestamps. Now before we get into all the tips, let's break down the very basics of the game. Dead by Daylight is a 4v1 asymmetrical horror game where one killer is tasked with hunting and killing 4 survivors. On the flip side, these 4 survivors are tasked with repairing 5 broken generators to power the exit gates and escape. But that's not all that you can do. As a survivor, there are many different choices you will have to make throughout a match. The HUD in the bottom left will give you all the information that you need to know in order to make good decisions. Here you can see how many generators need to be completed, the health states of all survivors, your item and add-ons if you have one equipped, and your possible methods to escape. Additionally, any perks you may have will be displayed in the bottom right, but we'll go over perks more in the progression portion of the video. This video is intended for beginners, so we're going to keep it simple. In your quest to escape the match, there are a few things you can do to aid your success other than just repairing generators. Healing or rescuing other injured survivors, searching chests for items, or sabotaging the killer's belongings can all greatly benefit your team. Furthermore, working together will speed things up and help you to complete these actions much faster. Though it is possible to play and escape as a lone wolf, it can prove more difficult once the other survivors have been killed. Placed around the map, there are 5 randomly positioned dull totems. Some perks, called hex perks, will transform a dull totem into a hex totem, which can be identified by its distinctive lit candles. Cleansing a dull totem will only give you bonus blood points, but cleansing a hex totem will deactivate the associated hex perk and dispel its curse. Additionally, survivors can sabotage the killer's hooks and tools with the help of a toolbox or the saboteur perk. All hooks found around the map, besides the basement hooks, can be temporarily disabled, meaning the killer cannot hook survivors on them. Now let's cover the chase. If your hiding fails and the killer finds you, there are a few things you can use to help you evade successfully. Keep in mind the killer moves faster than you, so you'll want to use obstacles to gain distance. Survivors have the ability to quickly vault windows and pallets, but for the killer, it's a different story. Once you have distanced yourself from the killer, you can try to break line of sight and hide in an unsuspected location. However, if none of this goes to plan and you're downed by the killer will pick you up and take you to a sacrificial hook. While on the killer's shoulder, you can wiggle in an attempt to break the killer's grasp and free yourself, but it is highly unlikely that this will happen as it takes a substantial amount of wiggling. The ultimate goal of the killer is to sacrifice survivors to the entity, and once a survivor is hung on a sacrificial hook, the sacrifice process will begin. It has 3 main phases. Phase 1, the summoning phase, Phase 2, the struggle phase, and Phase 3, the sacrifice phase. In Phase 1, the entity is being summoned to the hook. While this is happening, the hook survivor can be rescued by other survivors or attempt to free themselves with only a 4% chance of success. Failure accelerates the summoning process, so it is recommended to stay patient and wait for another survivor to come rescue you. However, if you are not rescued before the entity has manifested, you will be put into Phase 2. In Phase 2, you can no longer attempt to free yourself and instead are forced to fight back the entity. Same thing as in Phase 1, you can still be rescued by other survivors, but if they take too long, you will eventually lose the battle against the entity and will be sacrificed. Keep in mind that a survivor who has been rescued or escapes from the hook will automatically progress to the next phase the next time they are hooked. Now let's get into those tips we were talking about. When you are sprinting, you will leave a temporary trail of scratch marks that only the killer can see, so make sure you are only sprinting when you know it's safe or you're already being chased. You can determine if it's safe or not based on if you hear the killer's terror radius. The closer the killer gets to you, the louder and faster the heartbeat and music gets. If you fail a skill check, whether that's repairing a generator, healing a teammate, or sabotaging something, the killer will get a visual and audio cue to your location, which most likely means they're on their way. If you're looking for a place to hide, survivors can get inside lockers. These will give you 100% concealment and reduce the volume of any noises your survivor might make. If you stay in the locker for too long, however, crows will land on top of the locker and indicate to the killer that someone is hiding in there. Keep in mind that doing any rushed actions such as fast vaulting a window or pallet, or entering or exiting a locker fast will also alert the killer with another notification. You can solely do these actions just by not holding the sprint button. Now this next tip is somewhat of an advanced one, but I think it can be very beneficial for someone who is new and still learning. When you're being chased, don't just look ahead of you and run. Obviously that's important, but if you have some distance between you and the killer, don't be afraid to look behind you and see what the killer is doing. Doing this allows you the necessary information to decide if it's worth it to keep running to the next structure or to stay and throw the pallet. For all you people who want to play Killer, now's your time to pay attention, so listen up. Killer is pretty self-explanatory, right? Kill as many survivors as possible, but there's more to it than that. As Killer, you can see the aura of all uncompleted generators, and it is your goal to make sure you kill all the survivors before they can complete them. A good way to quickly find survivors is to simply patrol the generators. That is the survivor's main objective, and if you find a generator that has been worked on, chances are someone's nearby. If you think you have a generator zoned off, or no one will come to repair it anytime soon, you can kick the generator to regress its progression over time. Another key way to find survivors is to pay attention to the environment. There are quite a few crows around the map, and if a survivor alerts one, it will caw and fly up into the sky. If you see this happen, a survivor is guaranteed to be in that vicinity. Any injured survivors will moan in pain and leave a blood trail behind them, so always keep an eye out and always be listening. As we touched on earlier, sprinting survivors will leave scratch marks, and any rushed or failed actions will lead you to their location. Each killer has their own unique ability aside from their standard weapon that they carry around, and they all play very differently because of this. For example, the Trapper is an area control killer who can place bear traps around key locations to catch survivors, while the Hillbilly is a high mobility, chainsaw wielding killer who can cover large distances in a short amount of time and instantly down survivors with his chainsaw. Now, in order to kill the survivors, you have two options. Your primary method is to hook them on the sacrificial hooks, and the same process we discussed earlier will take place. Alternatively, you can use what is called a memento mori to instantly kill the survivors by your hand after they have been hooked at least once in the match. So how do you get these memento moris then? A memento mori is an offering found in the killer's blood webs. The blood web is where you spend your blood points that you earned in your matches to level up your characters. Both killers and survivors follow the same progression system using the blood webs, and it's here where you can acquire perks, items, add-ons, and offerings. All the above have different rarities to them and cost more blood points accordingly. Perks are unique in the way that they have tiers to them, each tier making the perk stronger than the last. Additionally, perks are tied to the character forever, whereas items and add-ons can be lost if you use them completely or die with them, and offerings are burned at the beginning of every match. For Killer, their add-ons will be lost at the end of every game, no matter the outcome. Each blood web is completely random, aside from there always being perks for you to choose from, depending on your character level. Each character has 3 perks that are unique to them, but at levels 30, 35, and 40, you can teach these perks to all the characters of the corresponding role. This means that you can find these unique perks in other characters' blood webs. An alternative way to unlock these teachable perks is through the Shrine of Secrets. Every time you gain enough XP to level up your player level, you'll be awarded with something called iridescent shards. This is an in-game currency that can be used to unlock teachable perks without having to level a character at all. The shrine refreshes weekly with 4 randomly selected perks, so always keep an eye on it for something you might want. So which character should you play first? For Survivor, I would recommend you either play Claudette or Meg. You'll level up Claudette for 1 perk, and that's self-care. Being a new player, this is almost essential to your survival, as when you are learning to play, you're gonna go down a lot. It sounds harsh, but it's true. As for Meg, all 3 of her teachable perks are super good. Sprint Burst will get you out of a bad situation, Quick and Quiet is good for being stealthy, and Adrenaline is great for that late game insta-heal. All the killers bring something different to the table, but I would recommend you start with the Wraith, as he is the simplest. Learning the Wraith will teach you the fundamentals of playing Killer, and from there you can branch off once you get more comfortable. Ultimately, choosing who to play and who to level up is for you to decide though. If you feel you're not quite ready to jump into a live match, you can always try out the tutorials located in the menus. These will go over the very basics of gameplay, such as repairing generators and opening exit gates, and for Killer, downing and hooking survivors. There's also the game manual located right underneath the tutorials that will give you an in-depth description of every aspect of the game. If you want to learn everything as fast as possible, I suggest you take the time to read these, as I only covered the basics and most relevant information to a beginner in this video. Thank you everyone for watching, I hope you learned something from this, and enjoy your time with Dead by Daylight. See you in the fog.